What we have here is buffalo fur or bison fur. This is the leather portion that is typically used for crafting. If you've ever seen a buffalo robe before, it's just a larger, the whole skin. That's basically what it is. This, the fur, the skin, the hide, the leather, whatever you want to call it, is useful in many applications, typically in crafting, clothing making, and making the home. During the summer, the robes that the people wear are typically scraped clean of the hair of the fur. You will have a summer robe and you will have a winter robe. The summer robes we call sheets, mainly just because they're leather. That's it. To tan leather, you need skin of some type of animal, you need the brains, you need the liver, and you need a type of fat. When you mix these three things together in hot water, you rub them on the skin side, the flesh side of the hide. You fold that up and you let it sit for a day. You undo that. Once that's done, the process of stretching and drying begins. You try and remove all of that excess moisture from the hide and the leather. You have various tools keeping the leather soft, because as it dries, it likes to harden and thicken up. But by scraping and working the leather back and forth, it gets it nice, soft, and supple. Useful for items like blankets, clothing, tops of moccasins, even sometimes if it's thick leather or rawhide, the sole. Rawhide is just the skin of the animal that hasn't been applied with the tanning solution. It hasn't been worked. Once that dries, it turns into a very hard surface. But a small piece of fur like this is very useful for crafts. You never know what you're going to need when the winter times come up. During the winter, they would try and gather all the wood they have and pile it near the lodge. They would go out and get more wood as they needed it. But you would need all sorts of clothing and gloves, hats, things for children, mittens, different types of things like that. The fur was very useful. They would use this as the outside part of the moccasin. Now, saying it's winter, the robe you would pull out from storage would be the winter robe. Or anytime it's cold robe. That was the robe that had fur all over it, the heavy robe. Typically, a family would have one or two of these robes because each one of those robes weighs around 15 to 20 pounds when it's a full bison. You had to carry everything on your back in those days. During the coming of the horse, when the horse was brought out to the plains, it made life a lot more easier. You could load more things, have a bigger home, have a larger family. But you tried to keep things lightweight. The fur was absolutely important. It added insulation towards cold. Anytime you had footwear that was wearing out, typically these were used as insoles to kind of help prevent you from wearing out your moccasins. It made stepping on this very soft, very comforting. If you've ever worn moccasins before, they are very flat. Your feet adjust to the ground. But you wear through moccasins pretty quick. Anything that can repair, that can be used to protect your foot from that hard sole over long distances was welcome. But they always had excess pieces of fur, scraps. They never know when they needed them. They could be used to mend buffalo robes, large tears, holes. They could be used for repairing clothing. And they could be used for bedding. When making a pillow, they would typically keep the fur on the inside. Get a large section of leather. This one is a small one, mainly to show how it might look. But you would stuff the inside of this with lots of fur, buffalo fur, antelope hair, you name it, anything that's soft. They would take mint or some good smelling plant and they would stuff it in with the pillow. They would tuck all the fur on the inside, then they would stitch that leather closed. So you would have a little case to keep everything in there. Pillows were an important part of, comfort back then. Sleeping, resting, part of decoration. They would typically bead a pillow on one side, so when company showed up, you had a beautiful object leaning against the wall. But when company left, you'd flip the pillow over and hide that beadwork and lay down on it. But buffalo fur could be used for many things: the hide, the skins, deer, antelope, bighorn sheep, anything that has a skin that is thick enough can be worked. The bison was one of the most versatile, though. It could be left thick to make durable leather, moccasin soles, or it can be scraped thin to make fine leather. As I said, the sheets in the summer were meant to be light. They were meant to be breathable. When you tan leather, it creates holes and pores inside the skin that can absorb moisture, that can help absorb some sweat. Typically, that was used on chilly nights. The sheet, the leather blanket you had. If it was too cold, you would pull out the good buffalo robe, the one with the hair on it. That one was a ceremonial robe that was used also back then. Laid out on a surface, and the person that was doing that ceremony could lay on top, could sit down, could do their prayers, different things like that. But the robe without any hair on it, that one was typically the show-off robe. If young men and young women wanted to go out and go meet with each other, they would wrap themselves in that thin leather robe with their clothing. Those robes were typically painted, ornamented to look fancy. That way they could attract the one they loved. So the fur, the hair, all sorts of uses. It could be used in the lodge, making of the lodge. When used with the sewing awl to punch holes, females of the tribe would sit down and they would sew the lodge together with sinew. Large lodges of the time needed 16 robes, 16 parts of a buffalo, the whole hide, to make a large lodge. The idea that everyone had a large home back then, a large tent, a large teepee, that was very impractical to move unless you had a large family. So it typically depended on how much you hunted, how generous your relatives were, your neighbors, if they could donate or spare pieces. But all you had to do was walk a little ways away from your home to another's home and ask them. They always had pieces to donate, always had things to spare. That was a good mentality back then.